It's early in the season, but the Raptors rumor mill is already going, and that's what we're going to talk about today. What's up, everybody? It's JJ Buckets. Told you what we're doing. So before I get into it, usual drill, like the video. It takes a second, makes a huge difference, and really thank you if you do it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Plus, if you plan on doing any responsible sports betting in the near future, just make sure to check out my link in the description below. So the Raptors are interested in acquiring Zach LaVine and have entered the mix, according to Shams, at the very least. Now, this is a weird one for me for a few reasons. I mean, first things first, obviously Shams is a legitimate source, so I wouldn't doubt that the Raptors are definitely involved in it, but I kind of question their involvement in here for a few reasons. Now, let's talk about the positives, right? Like, I understand the interest in LaVine in the sense that it actually does fill a pretty considerable need for the Raptors, something that the Raptors have been missing for a while in terms of perimeter shot creation, right? Like, Zach LaVine can absolutely bring that to the Raptors. He's a good scorer in isolation when it comes to the perimeter. Like, obviously he's a very good shooter from outside, and he would definitely fit well into what I think Darko Rajakovic is trying to implement in Toronto. However, this fit is weird to me for a few reasons. Number one is just what are you doing with the lineup, right? Like, what are you doing with the lineup if you're bringing in Zach LaVine? Because let's even talk about what does the trade package look like, right? Like, are you shipping out somebody like OG Anunoby? Because right now, obviously, Zach LaVine is a 2 guard. I think generously you could probably say he could play the 3 as well. Like, I don't think that's a huge problem, but like ideally I'd say you want him playing the 2 guard spot. And right now, obviously, you have your rotation with OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes at like the 2, 3, 4. And that doesn't really leave a lot of room for Zach LaVine. And I bring this up because obviously the Raptors have been unwilling to part with, as we've seen with previous rumors, OG or Pascal. And quite frankly, you know Scotty's not going anywhere. Of course Scotty's not going anywhere. Why would Scotty be going anywhere? At this point, early on in the season, Scotty Barnes has arguably been your best player, and he's obviously the player that you're building around moving forward. So it's not even in discussion, right? Like, Scotty Barnes is untouchable as far as the Raptors say he is, or like as far as the Raptors' perception of him. Scotty Barnes is untouchable. So where would Zach LaVine fit into the lineup, right? Because I think if you're looking at it generously in terms of the package that you could throw at the Chicago Bulls, like what you're looking at, like Gary Trent Jr., Chris Boucher, probably Grady Dick for the real appeal plus draft assets. And now you can sit here and argue whether or not Chicago would even take a package like that. I mean, I don't know what they think the perceived value of Zach LaVine is, but yeah, like, let's say in this hypothetical scenario they make something work around a package like that. Where does he fit into the lineup? Like, do you go back to the idea, dream, whatever you want to call it, of Scotty Barnes going back to the point guard spot, and you go Barnes, LaVine, OG, Siakam, and Pirtle? Like, is that the idea there? Like, are we revisiting that? Because otherwise I just don't see how like that lineup fits in, because you're not really going to drop OG Anunoby to the bench. He's your best defender by far, one of the best defenders in the NBA. You know, you're not going to drop Scotty Barnes to the bench, and you're not going to drop Pascal Siakam to the bench. So like, is that the vision that you're kind of moving towards? And then, yeah, like, that's the weird part to me, right? Otherwise, like, is this your trade where you move Pascal Siakam? And if it is, Pascal Siakam has more value than Zach LaVine, in my opinion, at the very least. So are you looking to get like considerable assets back when you're talking like LaVine, maybe like a Patrick Williams as well? Are you maybe eyeing Alex Caruso? Like, is that the thought process here, that, you know, you take Pascal Siakam and this is the trade where you move him and you're getting like a LaVine and a Caruso back or something? I don't know, right? Like, it's weird for a few reasons. And now obviously Zach LaVine himself too is in terms of fitting with the Raptors, like, he's obviously not a great defender either, and obviously the Raptors have built their team time and time again on great defense. And I think there's enough great defenders around him that maybe you could mask him, maybe you could hide him on the defensive end. I don't think that's the biggest worry in the world, but it's still something that's worth talking about. Obviously, the fact that just LaVine is not a great defender, and fit-wise in that sense, he might not, you know, really mesh with this team as well as you would maybe hope, right? But I don't know, it's weird. It's weird, right? Like, it's weird. I've mentioned like some of the points here where who are you shipping out? How are you fitting him in once he comes in? It's not the most seamless transition, and it's one of the weirdest teams, you know, to kind of be involved in the mix here, obviously with Toronto. On top of that, there's obviously the conversation, does Zach LaVine really put you over the top if you're the Toronto Raptors? Because as it currently stands at the time of the recording, like, you're 5-7, the team has been inconsistent. Like, when they're on, they're definitely on. When they're off, they're considerably off, to put it nicely. Does LaVine really change that for you? Like, yes, he does address, I'd say, a pretty good hole when it comes to things that you're missing, and especially with your half-court offense. I think Zach LaVine would aid that pretty damn well, but I think idealistically, you're looking for a better quality solution in that regard than a Zach LaVine, somebody that maybe fits your team a little bit better than a Zach LaVine. So is that really the end game? Like, do you look at Zach LaVine and think to yourself, yeah, once we add him to the team, we're a championship contender? Like, I don't really think so, right? Like, with all due respect to Zach LaVine, who's a very, very good player, he's not the guy that's putting you over the top if you're Toronto, at the very least. Like, for another team out there who's, you know, knocking on the door of contention and are looking at Zach LaVine as like the third option or something, like, I understand why, you know, LaVine puts you over the top in that scenario. But if you're the Raptors, where you're currently sitting and with the team that you have constructed, like, Zach LaVine takes you from a inconsistent team that you are right now and probably gets you to a fairly good team that's a reliable team you can count on to make the playoffs, but probably not do considerable damage in the playoffs. So where's the motivation for Toronto to make this move? I don't understand. And if you do understand, drop it in the comment section below, right? Because I don't know, for the multitude of reasons that I've mentioned in here, I don't see why the Raptors would be in the mix. I don't see a strong reason for them to be in heavy pursuit of Zach LaVine. But if you disagree and you see this working tremendously, let me know why in the comment section below. Other than that, folks, I think that's been me for the day. Yeah, like, weird rumor with this one here. Besides for that, end of the video, so usual drill. If you haven't done so already, hit that like button. I say it, and I mean it. It does help, and yeah, it's been a while since I've had a banger of a video, so I would appreciate it. Subscribe if you're new here. Other than that, folks, it's been JJ Buckets. It's been a pleasure, and I will see everybody next time.